Today I wanted to tell you a little bit about my story living with chronic Lyme. I know a number of women who actually have this illness, and I want to share this story because it's important to not feel alone, first of all, because this illness really can make you feel like you're going crazy. It's incredibly difficult to diagnose, especially if you are living in a place that is not incredibly rural. I had a friend who was actually diagnosed by his general practitioner on the first visit, but this is really not the case typically when, especially when you're living in a big city. So I have a great doctor now, but what happened was, I came down with Lyme at some point when I was very young, and I'll never know exactly when, but when I really started noticing it, my body was trying to basically tell me, get ready. It was almost like a part of me knew my marriage was going to end, and I was having like night terrors every night and an increasing sense of depression. And I knew something was wrong with me, and I continued to try to find doctors to diagnose me. By and large, they would always say, you have depression. And I just want to speak up for anyone who is, who's aware on some level that there is something the matter with them. Don't take a pat answer for your answer. You've got to be your own best advocate. I was told it was depression time and again, and I knew that wasn't accurate. I could tell that there was something more going on that was more systemic and more insidious than that. So I pressed on, and it took me a couple years. But right before my marriage ended, obviously my mental state was terrible. I was really upset. I was imagining the worst. I saw the signs all around me, and my body, that with that influx of stress. Stress is like Frankenstein for this kind of a thing, because Lyme can exist dormant in you for many years, and then boom, with some stressful event, it basically arises and comes to life, and that is what happened. So I guess what I started noticing the first was a lot of pain, in a sense that truly like my body was not working correctly. Mine presented, my doctor actually thought I had MS. I remember at one point I was reading in my bed, and I had, bare feet, and I looked up and I had no idea where I was. And I remember thinking, you have no shoes on. You are reading on somebody's bed. You should know where you are. And it was a terrible moment, and that was the weekend before I got diagnosed. Earlier that week, I had been trying to put on, a pair of underwear, and it took me I don't know how many minutes, but I was literally wrestling with this thing like an alligator. Like I could not figure out how to put this pair of underwear on. Finally, it occurred to me, after really struggling, that it was a bra. So that is a good snapshot into how Lyme affected my cognition. And because I had it for so long, it was in my central nervous system, and it did affect me in that way. Some people, and if you are somebody who sees a bullseye, one thing I do want to say about that is a rarity, that somebody would luck out in that manner and see a bullseye and get to go in and go on a quick course of antibiotics. That is a huge blessing. But for most of us, we have to be diligent about finding someone to put together mystery symptoms. And so I did, and I went through a battery of tests, and they seemed extreme. My saliva even was tested. I was waking up all through the night to do all these tests, but it was worth it because I did get my diagnosis. But it's been up and down since then. And I shared a little bit about this in my near-death experience video, but I finally did go into remission from that point. But with the stress of the divorce and then when I went into mediation, I got really afraid all over again, and it came back. And that time was even slower to go. And it culminated with right before I had that near-death experience, August 11th, 2017. I had been growing sicker and sicker, weaker and weaker. I had a lot of neuropathy, traveling neuropathy. I had pain in my joints, especially the larger joints. For me, my right knee was the big problem, and that is why I was immobile all of last year. I couldn't walk, and the pain also would be traveling. My cognition was terrible. The brain fog was terrible. I ended up hiding from people in large part because I was too embarrassed to open my mouth. I could not remember anybody's name. I remember introducing myself as the wrong name. I felt accurately like my mind and my body could not hold their own. And spirit me was trapped in this firing, blazing mess. And I've tried a whole bunch of medicines, so many medicines. I had a port in my arm for many months. I'd wear like a fanny pack with an IV ball, a couple IV balls a day, and the wires, the tubes hanging out, and people asking me questions, obviously, because it's not something you see every day. There was paralysis with this neuropathy, especially in my hands and feet. There was incredible difficulty breathing. There's something called air hunger, which comes with co-infections. And there's a sensation of truly an elephant sitting on your chest. So speaking at my worst point in a whisper, because I did not have the sensation of being able to breathe. I know that's hard to understand because I don't fully understand it either, but that is a very common symptom of babesia. So here's a story at my worst point. I have 2 kids and they're young. They were 6 and 7 at this time, and I was, again, unable to walk. So at various times over last year, I had either a walker or a cane. And at this point, at my worst, I would have to stay on the couch. I would really make one effort for the day. I would crawl across the floor into the kitchen. I'd have all my stuff for PB&Js down low. I would make a ton of PB&Js while laying on the kitchen floor. I'd put each sandwich out on its own paper plate and then spread those plates out alongside the wall so nobody would step on them. I'd put the stuff away, still laying on the floor, and then I would crawl back to the couch. And at this point, I was so pleased with myself for figuring this out and being able to take care of my kids. I actually felt smug about it. I felt like I'd hacked the system. Like, take that, Lyme, I got you. So insane. And for whatever reason, I felt so embarrassed and so ashamed, and I was not asking for help, even of my closest friends. And my best friend has the key to my house, and I think it had just been too long since she'd heard from me. And this one day toward the end, I was getting up the stairs as I did, which was like by doing the backwards crab walk up the stairs, and she actually just busted in. And she took one look at me and she was like, "What is going on? What are you gonna do about this? Who are you gonna ask for help?" And I was like, "I'm okay." I think the truth was I felt so overwhelmed that I did not know where to start or where to ask for help. And grave illness is a funny thing. It's really hard for people to accept it. And I found that to be true. Even of, some of those closest to me, it's a difficult thing to accept. It makes people feel powerless. It's easier to, sometimes I think people are exaggerating, or I'm not really sure, but I had to kind of think outside the box, and I had to have a couple difficult conversations with my parents too. It was very difficult for them to accept this, and I believe that was because of fear. So, like I said, toward the end, couldn't walk, couldn't breathe well, couldn't speak over a whisper. One of my hands and one of my feet were paralyzed. And the overarching pain was incredible. And I was on narcotics. But I don't know how to describe it. It was a kind of a pain and a kind of neuropathy. And with the breathing, everything, it wasn't something medicine really comforted. And the other thing was, and this is for anybody who is experiencing this, my doctor at the time was contributing to my death, really. My medication list I had stored in a Word document, and it was over 2 pages long. That is really negligent. And I would go in to see him every time, and I'd say, look, I've got to get off some of these meds. My body can't handle this kind of a load. And again, if your intuition is speaking like that, I really urge you to reach out. Even on the internet, there's a lot of good resources out there. But I really kind of knew I was being poisoned to death, and I was right. And one of the first things I did after coming to from that near-death experience was begin to taper back on a lot of these medicines. And that alone started really helping me get better. So this has been an up and down thing, and a lot of the women I know are the same way. I joked with one of my friends, it was like the first time we both were up and running well, so we got to hang out. I was like, do you think about it? Think about the last 2 years. One of us has always been down for the count. And that is really hard to accept also when you're going through something like this. And let's say, with good diet and good attention on your part and taking your medicine and so forth, you do feel better. And then something may happen, whether it's a lot of stress or maybe your protocol just doesn't really cut it anymore, and you may go downhill again. And that to me has been, I think, the hardest part of this. Even after my near-death experience, I experienced a phenomenal improvement in my health. It was a miracle. But even that only lasted however long it lasted, and I went downhill again, and that was actually my darkest crisis of faith. I thought, after all of this, why are you doing this to me? But I do want to share this. Only strong people get sent this kind of contrast. And maybe that's hard for you to believe while you're in it. But I have hit so many rock bottoms in my life, not just with Lyme. Some of it I'm not sure it's totally appropriate to share, but I have hit so many rock bottoms in my life. With drinking, with eating, with depression. Rock bottoms. And each time I'd be in that bottom place, I'll definitely do a video on Dark Night of the Soul. I've experienced a handful of dark nights of the soul, and when you're in it, you really do wish for the end. But I do look back today on each of these pain points, and I am more grateful for them than anything else in my life, because without them, I don't know who I would be, but it would not be this person. I feel like my authentic, bright self. I'm living out loud. I'm telling you guys all of this stuff. Most everything I've already shared with you, that was for my best friends only. I was far too afraid to ever share this out loud. I never thought I'd be able to help people with this stuff. But I just want to urge you, even if you can't see the light right now, keep going. Do not stop trying. Be your own best and loudest advocate. There is a purpose, a divine purpose to whatever is happening to you, whatever your illness is. There is a way out. You just can't give up. Even if you are crawling across the kitchen floor like I was, do not give up, because on the other side of this, and I'm not saying everyone's going to heal to the state that they used to be. I don't know what's in store for you, but I do believe with all my might. I have been alive 41 years and I've hit so many rock bottoms. And after I have embraced them and accepted them and transmuted them, I am telling you, nothing has contributed more to my character or my spirit more than they have. And if you are going through a healing crisis, that is more than enough to deal with. Please try to soften the way you speak to yourself in your mind. Please try to lower the bar for the way you conduct yourself in your life. If you're a mom, if you have a job, if you have a relationship, as a family member, as a friend, lower your bar. You are healing and you're trying to find out the best way to heal. Your effort and energy is well spent in that way. Whoever burns off out of your life during this time, know that it's not you and that it's all right. There are people there for you who will accept you just as you are. It may feel like a fire sale. Your world may seem to get smaller, but what will be left on the other side, it will be authentic. It will be a friend who is authentically in your corner without judgment. It will be someone who knows that you may go for a couple weeks without going anywhere, without accepting any invitation, or without even calling them back. My true friends knew this, and I would tell them, I'd be like, I can't make phone calls right now. I don't have that energy. So anyone who is going through an illness or is struggling to diagnose what's going on with them, please trust your intuition. It's there for a reason. It is connected to your multidimensional eternal self. If you have a diagnosis and it doesn't sit well with you, please trust that. Please do not stop going. We need your light. And I promise you, everything happens for a beautiful reason. And I wanted to just share that to everyone who is struggling with some kind of an illness like this. I want to just send you all my love. You are braver than you know, no matter what anyone else may be saying. And I love you all. And we'll talk to you soon. All my thanks and love.